Welcome back to the Reboot Era, where we turn layoffs into liftoffs and career pivots into possibilities. Before we dive in, a quick heads up for job seekers. I've partnered with JobHire.ai, a platform that will apply to jobs for you, even while you're sleeping. This August 2025, you can get 30% off any plan with code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details and the link to make sure you get your discount. And yes, if you don't get an interview in 15 days, you'll get your money back. Now let's get into the episode. Today's guest, Tami Burdick, is a published author, resume writer, content developer, and 20-year veteran of the franchise industry. She's helped countless professionals sharpen their resumes, navigate career changes, and rethink their strategies in a rapidly changing job market, especially as AI shapes the future of work. Whether you're job hunting, thinking about a pivot, or curious about franchise life, this one's packed with insights. Let's jump in.
My name is Tami Burdick. I am a published author, resume writer, and content developer. I do writing for a health and wellness website. And then I'm also a 20-year veteran in the franchise industry, doing different franchise consulting and coaching and fractional work.
That's all really awesome. And I think the first question people are going to have is like, how did you get into that? Did you graduate college? Did you go to college? Did you graduate college and then just jump into that? Like, how does one do this?
Yeah, so I went to college. After college, I actually started in corporate America. So I was in human resources at first. So as you can imagine, I was all over the recent Coldplay concert, but I experienced layoffs very early on in my career. And I'm like, you know what? This is not what I signed up for. And so I kind of fell into franchising when my dad was forced into early retirement. He was in an executive position, but he wasn't quite ready to retire. So he was looking at franchise opportunities, and then he asked me if I had any interest in basically teaming up or partnering with him on a home inspection franchise. So I did that in addition to working for an area developer at Gold Gem Franchising. And that's really how my franchise career took off. My dad eventually dissolved the franchise. I went to work for a franchise system, and from then on out, I was heavily involved in the franchise space.
So do you currently own any franchises, or are you just still involved from like a marketing perspective?
So I do a lot of freelancing and fractional work for different franchise systems across the country. So I'm fully self-employed.
That's lovely. And your self-employment has started, like, what year did you kind of step away from corporate America?
It started a long time ago, but I did take a break from self-employment, and before the pandemic went and worked directly for another franchise system. And then I reverted back to doing freelancing and fractional franchise work after the pandemic kind of settled down a bit.
And you also mentioned you're an author. Have you
I am.
written one book, multiple books?
I've written one book. I do have intentions for a second. But I don't have as much free time now as I did during the pandemic when I wrote and published my first book.
And what is this book about?
So it is about how a business trip would lead me to contracting a bacterial infection that was missed by the healthcare system. And it's kind of like an Erin Brockovich-like story. You know, obviously there can only be one Erin Brockovich, so I named my book Diagnosis Detective. And it's really how being your best advocate can lead to the results that you want and deserve.
Okay. I love this. I'm learning so many things about you in 5 minutes. So maybe we can take a quick step back before we talk a little bit more about what you do, why we're talking today. I like to tell the people, right, why or how we met. And I don't know you. You don't know me. Other than, I think, a week ago or so,
Yeah.
we came across each other on LinkedIn, and it was that easy. And I think either I commented on your post or you commented on mine, and the conversation started from there. And, you know, now you're a guest on this podcast, which, thank you. I love this.
And I appreciate the invitation to be here today.
Of course. And the thing that stood out when I saw your profile was that the big thing was that you're a resume writer. And I think you had offered and said, hey, if you want me to take a look at your resume, I will do that for free. And for me, and going through this like navigation of a layoff, there's a lot of people who reach out. There's a lot of people who post saying they're a career coach and a resume writer and they're a recruiter. And you get fake scams and you get people who want you to pay for things that you're like, I don't have income. How can I afford these things? And is it really going to be what I need to help me? So because you're a resume writer, I was like, I haven't talked to somebody who's a resume writer yet. I'd love to get your perspective about, number one, what you do as a resume writer. Like, what is that? And then also maybe squashing some stigmas that come with being one. I'm sure people reach out and say mean things, or you've heard or read mean things, but like, could you share a little bit about resume writing?
Yeah. First, I want to say, to help with the scammers on LinkedIn, it's always good to report to LinkedIn if you come across anything like that, because that's going to better put them in a position to help us see less of that happening. And also look for profiles with the security shield. And mine does. I want to be able to offer people that I communicate with on LinkedIn, or that I build relationships with LinkedIn, or perhaps even become my clients. I offer that security. My LinkedIn profile has been security shielded. So what I do as a resume writer is basically kind of, what it is I develop and design marketable and competitive resumes to help displaced individuals, new college grads, or people who are maybe thinking about going into a completely new career and they need a transitional resume, and getting these documents designed in a way where they're going to be eye-catching and more successful, hopefully, in their job market.
Wow. And you've had a lot of success with that. That's a question. Have you had a lot of success with that?
I have. And in franchising, it can be kind of up and down with my book of business. Any freelancer can experience that, but my niche clientele in franchising are startups. And the unfortunate part to startups is they often don't have the operating capital available to be able to afford someone like me. So there's not this huge influx of opportunity always. So I look for opportunities really during the pandemic to be able to help people, because it was a time, a critical time in a lot of people's lives, that they were suddenly without their livelihood. And maybe some of them have never faced that before in their life. Maybe they've been with their company for 25 years. They haven't written a resume in 25 years. A lot has changed in that time frame. And so I really kind of saw a need to be able not only to help people, but to also help me financially as well. So it's kind of like a win-win.
Yeah. And you're doing an amazing service for people. I haven't taken you up on it yet, and that's because I have been putting so much time and effort into this podcast and some social media stuff I'm working on, as well as some certifications I'm trying to get. But I wanted to ask, and I think, feel free to share what you can here, but live, real quick, just spitballing. What is like the number one or number two thing that you would say, this is the best advice that I would give someone about a resume, something to change? And maybe what's something that you see that's like, please stop saying this to people. This isn't helping them.
Yeah. What I see a lot when I'm reviewing resumes as potential problems is, one being the length. I have seen resumes that have been like 12 pages long, and I'm just like, you have got to cut it down to 2 pages. And I often try to tell people, approach your resume kind of like you would a dating profile. You want to put enough on the hook, right? If it's a fishing pole, put enough on the hook to reel them in to kind of capture the interest. Then you sell yourself in that interview, right? You don't need a 10, 12-page resume, because if you do the research, a recruiter takes less than 10 seconds to look at a resume. And pretty much what's on that first page is where the concentration is going to be. I would say another problem is the resumes are too task oriented and not enough based around results, achievements, accomplishments, and really what the candidate brings to the table. And then thirdly would kind of be the design element. A lot of resumes look the same. And let's say you take a position that has 1,000 applicants. How are you going to stand out amongst a 999 other people? So I would say those are probably the 3 biggest problems that I see when it comes to resumes, and I would say 95% of the time, there's opportunity for improvement on the resumes I review.
Yeah, and you're getting resumes from all different levels of career individuals, correct?
Yeah, I even developed a resume before for a guy who works on an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean. Yeah.
Did he, like, carrier pigeon the resume to you? Or does he have internet?
He has internet.
That's lovely, and I think so, largely just using a resume writer can actually really help you, and maybe could you just share with all the advancements of AI and people using ChatGPT, like, is that something you've ever shared with people to say, "Hey, you can leverage ChatGPT for these things, and this is how it can help you"? Or are you still like, "No, having a person look at this is the best way to go"?
Don't think I've seen people show like, well, AI did this resume. From what I've seen, AI can't produce the presentation aspect of the style of resume that I produce. Obviously, that's my opinion. I think AI and, things like these applicant tracking systems like ATS there's a huge presence of it on LinkedIn, but I think people focus on that way too much. And I've seen a lot of other posts where they say it's kind of more like hoopla. And I think it was like Inc. magazine recently, just a couple weeks ago, said, it's baloney basically. And ATS actually stands for applicant tracking system. It doesn't stand for applicant screening system. But ideally, the people that are going to have the best advantage in this job market are the ones who aren't applying for jobs online. They are networking. They're using LinkedIn to the best in all of the capabilities that it offers. They're going to networking groups in their own city. Maybe they're using the app Meetup, where there's all these different groups available locally to where they live. And like some here where I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, we could have several hundred people attend one event. That is several hundred people that you could potentially be talking to and letting them know that you're looking for a job. Because what's one of the most common questions that you're asked if you meet somebody new? It's, what do you do for a living? Right? That is the perfect time for you to say, well, you know what? Normally I'm doing XYZ, but right now I'm looking for a job. And all it takes is that one person.
Agreed, and do you go to those types of events still, or is that something you used to do?
I don't go to as many networking events now, but in previous years when I was helping one of my clients with marketing, I was doing more of that. But I personally don't go to a lot of networking groups here. Perhaps if I didn't have the amount of business that I do, I might do more of that.
That's good to know, though. I mean, if you've done it in the past and it's worked, it's definitely something to share now that COVID's not as big of a thing and as big of a worry, getting out and meeting those people. And there are free networking events as well using that Meetup app.
Absolutely. Yep, the Meetup app especially.
So, Tammy, you've shared a little bit about your background. You talked about your resume writing. Can we talk about your LinkedIn presence for a second? You have a lot of followers,
I do.
almost 20,000 followers. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Would you say you know 20,000 people, by name?
I don't know them personally, but the franchise space is kind of like this own community, right? And I kind of look at us as like one big family. And it's kind of like that people who know people who know people. If you know someone in franchising, chances are they're going to know somebody else who you also know. And I think a lot of the individuals that I'm connected on LinkedIn, I have got some sort of connection or tie to the franchise space, but I've met a lot of people too through my book, and I've had publishers reach out and want to connect with me, and I'm well connected to the media as well. I've done interviews with the New York Times and Fox and CBS and Newsmax, and I was on the American Medicine Today show on Wake Up with Marcy. So all of these, opportunities and presence in the media has also led to a lot more connections and a lot of referral business too. Hey, you should connect with Tammy, and then I connect with them. But it's taken a lot of years to get that many connections. It's definitely not something that happens overnight, but I do career coaching as well. I probably should have mentioned that when we kicked off this podcast interview, but I will tell my clients that I do career coaching to make it a goal every day to connect to 5 new people on LinkedIn. And just imagine how many connections you can end up with if you make that part of your daily routine.
Yeah. It's interesting because some people take the opposite approach, right? They're reserved. They're like, I don't want everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can follow me, but don't connect with me, right? I found that I just spoke with someone who was up in the air about that. And they were saying, I don't know how I want to move forward with my LinkedIn strategy around connections. I'd love for you to follow me and my business page, but I don't know if I want to connect because that's a lot of DMs that you might receive. Do you receive a lot of messages daily from people?
I do. The messages that I cannot stand are the cut and paste sales pitches that you can obviously read it and know that they are using the same message over and over, just with a different person. And they're normally someone that's trying to sell me something. And then what irritates me even more is if that person obviously did not read my LinkedIn profile to know that there's no way I could benefit from their product or service. So, how I handle those is I respond and I offer them my sales training because I've done a lot of sales trainings in the franchise space. I've trained franchisees on sales, the sales process, objecting to close, how to build relationships, winning through people, the whole gamut. And I'm just like, you've got to build trust and likability with the people that you're messaging. And you will not know whether I could benefit from a product or service unless you build a relationship with me. Sales is about being able to provide a solution to a problem. And you don't know what my problems are if you've never talked to me before.
Exactly. Even if I'm airing my dirty laundry on LinkedIn, you still don't quite know.
My advice, if you're working on building your network on LinkedIn, and you're sending that initial message to somebody, don't try to sell yourself. Even if you're a job applicant, don't try to send your resume or just send your resume uninvited to somebody when you connect with them. Note something maybe about their LinkedIn profile that caught your attention. Maybe they did a podcast interview. Maybe they were in a publication. Maybe you both previously worked for the same company many years ago. Start building a relationship with that person.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about it. Like, where did this begin? Did we just get access to the internet and then LinkedIn became a thing and people were like, my communication skills have gone out the window and I don't know how to develop rapport with somebody and just chat and talk before understanding where they're coming from, what they might need, and how I could, fill that gap. Now, your strategy for posting, do you do have a lot of posts? I think I see you since we've connected every single day, at least one, if not more. And do you get discouraged by the number? Some people chase that clout of like, ooh, this got 1,000 likes and look at the impressions. Or are you posting for you and, seeing what resonates?
I don't know if I'm necessarily posting for me. I would say that there's some posts out there that are more designed to be around my benefit, but I love helping people. And I post a lot of different things, whether it's going to be kind of connected to my story that led me to publishing a book. Maybe it's something about franchising. Maybe it's something about the job market or a resume. So my content, really isn't strictly limited to one topic or subject. Um, there's definitely kind of like a good mix on posts that's going to obviously help build my network, but also be able to help so many people.
Yeah. Now, with your posts, do you read every comment that people leave, or do you kind of post and leave it and move on?
Well, I love that LinkedIn notifies me when I have a comment or somebody's commented, so it makes it a lot easier. But that will help your overall algorithms and how much your content is getting potentially seen by others. So I always think it's good to respond to people who are commenting on your post. And if they're going to take the time to comment on a post you make, it's kind of common courtesy to take the time to respond to their comment.
Yeah. Agreed. I always like to ask people, what their strategy is like if they have a lot of people that they follow. And it's interesting because I don't have that many connections. I mean, compared to yourself. So what is your LinkedIn like right now? Mine's filled with layoff. It's filled with everyone who's going through layoff journeys and all of the sad. It's like opening a book and then crying every day because people are just going through really bad times from what my content is showing me.
Yeah, so some of your content that is shown is also going to be based on things that you follow, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like, I get a lot of things on politics because I'm connected to other people that kind of share my mindset on that topic. See a lot of different things like about people in their job search because I'm a resume writer. So I think I tend to see like a lot of people say, oh, I've been laid off or I'm looking for a job. I think there's a lot of diversity to the content that I see in my feed. But like I said, some of it's going to be derivative upon what you're actually following on LinkedIn, the companies you're following, the people that you're following.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's why I was curious, what with 20,000 followers, what is your content like that you scroll through? Now, are you only on LinkedIn? Do you use other social medias to share and talk about your journey and what you're doing in life?
So, my platforms that I use primarily are LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and X. I'm not on Truth Social. My Facebook is the platform that I use for freedom of speech. So, normally I'm not well connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn on my Facebook because I don't ever want to offend anybody or I never want somebody to judge me based on my viewpoints on certain topics out there in the world. So I kind of use my Facebook platform to freely post content without judgment. And a lot of people on my Facebook are people that I know personally. My Instagram is kind of like a good balance, I guess. Still a little cautious, I guess, on what content that I put on Instagram, but both my Facebook and Instagram are a lot less business than my LinkedIn is. And I think Twitter or X for the longest time was kind of like that platform a couple years ago that people were using to have more of a freedom of speech. So I was using that platform more with the prior administration, maybe necessarily than I am now, but I was connected to like a lot of people like on the media and whatnot on X too. Like the New York Times found me on X and that's how I got my interview with them. So
So it sounds like you're well connected across multiple social medias.
yeah, but I don't have anywhere near like what a social media influencer has, I'm not like, you know, having the million plus followers. I'm not
Yeah,
that important.
one day. You're on your way. It's still impressive. And I will say, are you, well, I guess before I ask a question I ask everyone who joins my podcast, what could you share about yourself that we wouldn't see from looking at your LinkedIn? What do you do outside of being a businesswoman and helping all of these people? Do you have dogs? Do you have pets?
I like dogs. I've never owned dogs. I've had cats a lot during my life, but I currently don't have any pets of my own. I also had fish. I had betta fish for the longest time. Thought they offered like this calming sense to my environment. I'm very interested in health and wellness. A lot of content that I post on Facebook, by the way, is very health and wellness and medical driven. I enjoy live music. For many years, I was seeing a local band quite often. I don't normally go out as much just because as I've gotten older, I've become more of a golden girl. How about that?
I love that.
I love baking and cooking. It's a way for me to kind of keep trying to live a health and wellness lifestyle like a lot easier because I think if you're trying new recipes and you've got a lot of diversity to what you're eating, it makes it easier to kind of stick to eating healthier. TV, I mean, obviously, who doesn't watch TV, right? Some of my favorite shows have been Shark Tank. I love watching Law and Order SVU. Um, let's see, HGTV, like House Hunters International, especially because I get to kind of like see the world, but I don't have to get on a plane to do it. So yeah, those are
Nice.
kind of my jams.
I love that. And now that you shared that from one person who loves to bake to potentially another, what are some recent bakes you've had?
Recent things I've baked.
Yeah.
This is gonna sound absolutely crazy, but I just made a pumpkin pie a couple weeks ago.
Why is that crazy? Because it's July or June, I
It's
guess, when you made
July.
it.
It's
I
just like
mean,
pumpkin spice season way too soon.
but if the taste buds need it, you got to make a pumpkin pie.
I know, right? I'm like, you know what? I have a gluten-free crust already ready to go. I've got a can of organic pumpkin. I've got all the other ingredients. I'm like, why not?
Yeah. And do you bake for other people? Like, do you ever like drop it off at someone's house, or are you just like I bake it for me and I eat it myself?
No, then I would probably look like a beach whale. I will share with my folks. I will make sure that they get, some of that deliciousness too. I just made a strawberry shortcake for the first time ever. OMG, it was so good. I just made a gluten-free vanilla cake, and then I made homemade whipping cream, organic and grass-fed, but I did not add any sugar or sweetener because I was going to put coconut sugar in the strawberries. So I figured with the sweetened strawberries, which were organic, by the way, and the gluten-free vanilla cake that I wouldn't need sugar in the whipping cream, and it turned out perfect. So simple, so easy, delicious, and healthier.
And is that separate from the strawberry shortcake, or is that the strawberry shortcake you made?
I made it. I put it all together. I made the vanilla cake, made the homemade whipping cream, put the organic strawberries and some coconut sugar, and then constructed it together like a house.
I love this. I so ironically, I've been on this like strawberry shortcake jam lately. I never liked it. I liked the idea of it. I thought they looked pretty, but I never made one. And then I follow Christina Tosi from the Milk Bar, and she had posted like I think it was last year. She was doing like a 365 days bake club, and I came across this thing one day that was like a strawberry shortcake cobbler, and I actually exchanged it for apples because I didn't want to do strawberries. And then 2 months ago, I was hanging out with my mom, and I was like, I feel like I'm gonna try to do this in a mason jar, and I just whipped it up and it was fluffy and delicious and not as organic as yours. Lots of sugar, but delicious. A nice summer treat.
Awesome.
So I love this. Okay, well, I really appreciate you being here, sharing a lot about yourself, both professionally and a little bit personally. Are you open to people, if they hear this, connecting with you on LinkedIn? And how can they reach out about resume services?
Yeah. First, I thought we should probably touch on kind of like the job market for a minute and like AI, like the AI impacts.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of the individuals who are going to be listening to this interview in particular are probably going to be job seekers. We have already had 700, close to 745,000 job cuts so far this year in the United States alone. And AI in particular, it's expected that we could potentially see 300 million jobs impacted. But if you look a little beyond that, how that could actually have a much larger impact when we look at the economy. Because if 300 million jobs are impacted, how is that going to impact other people who aren't directly impacted from a job cut? Let's say that 300 million people would lose their job, then you have got all of those people who likely aren't going to be able to contribute to the economy like they normally would. It becomes a different kind of shift in how someone lives their life when they lose their job. It becomes more of buying things that you need versus buying things that you want. And if you're no longer able to go out to restaurants, go to bars, or maybe can't get massages anymore, or go get your hair done as more frequently as you had hoped for, or your fingernails, or what have you, there's going to be so much economic impact, I'm predicting, from AI.
Mhm.
Because it's not just going to be, I don't think, limited to the people that are losing their jobs, but it's going to affect spending habits of others.
Do you think that that's going to in turn result in a lot of prices coming down for commodities?
It's possible, but We've also got a lot of things that are still kind of up in the air from a government perspective. And I don't, obviously want to take this talk that direction, but I think
Sure.
there's a lot of things that are kind of still up in the air. But, if you've got less people being able to contribute to the economy, I think that's going to be a potential problem. We also have AI being used more in a job search perspective, where you've got AI now screening resumes. You've got job applicants who are experiencing an AI bot potentially doing an interview. Maybe they're doing a pre recorded interview. And I think that AI is taking human out of human resource.
Yeah, I think that that's not far off.
Yeah. So I ask people, if you're potentially going to be impacted by AI, start thinking about how you're going to be proactive now, because the last thing you want to do is wait a year, 2, 3 years, and then be reactive.
Right.
Put yourself in a better position now, because AI is coming. It's already been coming, but it's going to be coming even more, whether we like it or not. And look at all of the layoffs that have happened recently, like with Microsoft. There was like 9,000 people, I think, laid off just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and 6,000 before that. Have you seen anything that's like worth mentioning of people who have been making that pivot? What have people been doing, or what have you seen from your connections?
I've seen a lot of people working on getting new certification. Some people that I've talked to are thinking about going back to college, and completely learning something totally new. There have been some people that have thought about getting into a special trade because they're that worried about what they're doing. They're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that it is a good opportunity for people to look at what can they do for extra streams of income. Like with me, I'm self-employed. I've got different things going on that bring in different elements of income. And I think if people are looking at how they can themselves have multiple streams of income, they'll better put themselves in a position. Like, look at the pandemic, for example. Let's say if you had a full-time job, but you had other streams of income going on, maybe you would have been in a better position to go through the COVID-19 era had you had those extra stream of incomes in place.
Yeah, that's actually a topic we talk about with most people who are open to talking about how they make money. It can be tough if they have a full-time job and they're talking about their side hustles because some employers don't like that. But it is something that I think more people will probably start doing. And if they aren't doing it yet, they should do it because it's important. If you lose one major stream and it's your only stream, you're really in a rut. But as long as you have those backups, those passive incomes, those other things that you might do, you can kind of pivot and prioritize your time on other things in order to keep making money.
There are franchise owners that have full-time jobs,
Yeah.
but they employ people to run and operate their franchise. So they're not as hands-on because they have a full-time position, but they have other people that are doing the hands-on element.
Yeah. I mean, you have an array of knowledge and your hands are in multiple different pots. I really think people would, you know, resonate from connecting with you, seeing the stuff that you post and just potentially reaching out and starting that conversation, right? It's not a sales pitch, but just starting a conversation about things in the world and this current, job market and how they're going beyond this podcast.
Definitely, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always open to meeting and talking to new people. I just talked to someone in the franchise space today. We had like an hour and a half conversation. I mean, it was freaking awesome. He was so cool too.
Just impromptu, like out of the
Yeah.
blue.
He
Nice.
messaged me the other day, was like, "Hey, you're in franchising, I'm in franchising, we should chat sometime." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm always up for talking to people in the franchise space." So we talked for an hour and a half today.
Wow. That's lovely. I like those calls that happen when they're just like, is this a bill collector? Is this spam? This
My
is the
gosh, I hate
friend.
spam. I hate spam calls. I'm like the worst person that you want on the other end of a spam call. Like sometimes I'll talk like I'm from a completely different country, or they'll say, is such and such there. I'll be like, oh man, you just missed them. They moved to China. I'm the new homeowner here.
That's it for today's episode of the Reboot Era. If you're on the job hunt, don't forget my collab with jobhire.ai. You can get 30% off on all plans through August 2025 with the code DRAY30, DRAY30. Check the footer of this episode for the details to make sure you get your promo. Huge thanks to Tami Burdick for sharing her journey, resume tips, and candid thoughts on the job market and AI's impact on our careers. You can connect with Tami on LinkedIn. She's open to conversations, sharing resources, and helping job seekers improve their chances in a competitive market. Links are in the show notes. And as always, if you found this helpful, follow the show, leave a review, and share it with someone navigating a career shift. Until next time, keep rebooting.